Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 17 of the On Deck podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, and today we're going to be covering a whole bunch of topics from our league leaders in home runs to a call-up to bullpens and one of the more electric matchups that we've had all season. All that on today's podcast. You know, as most MLB lovers do, they'll just, randomly catch themselves just scrolling through league leaders and stats. And honestly, that was me a couple days ago. And I came across our league leaders in home runs. And at the time of recording, it has changed. But we have Tyler Soderstrom, Corbin Carroll, Mike Trout, and Cal Raleigh all tied at the top with 9 home runs. And honestly, outside of Raleigh, who we'll touch on a little later, honestly, all these guys have been quite surprising this year. We have, starting off with Tyler Soderstrom. This was a guy that, had some questions that were being put up from last year. Is he going to, stick to catching? Is he going to be playing majority of his time in the minors? Or is he going to be sticking at first base or even in left field as they were trying him out there last year for the no city designation athletics? But this year he's turned into a different hitter, absolutely elevating the baseball. And with 9 home runs, I'm sure that nobody was expecting this, even if you're asking from the athletics camp. This is, again, another exciting young player in that organization that I think is definitely going to be a building block with them, along with another guy that we're going to touch up on a little later in the podcast. But this guy has been quite a surprise to me, and another reason why you should all be wanting to tune into these athletic games. You never know what's going to happen. Then our other tied player with 9 home runs is going to be Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks. And this is one of the more surprising ones, in my opinion, just because we all know Corbin Carroll as, a speed demon, guy that's going to get you a lot of doubles and triples, especially playing out in Arizona with that big outfield. But this year, made a couple swing adjustments with his hands and his launch angle, and he's absolutely pulverizing the baseball. Exit velos are up almost 5 miles an hour. He hit a ball 115, which is insane. I think that's one of the higher batted balls that we've seen this early in the season. But he's absolutely crushing the fastballs. And I think this just goes to show you that last year was quite a down year for him. And, he was playing hurt the first half, with some shoulder impingement and some shoulder pain, if I remember correctly. But once the second half rolled around, we saw, the Corbin Carroll that we saw in his rookie season, where he looked like, a MVP in the making with the speed, the defense, the contact, and, he could run into a couple home runs here and there. But early in the season, showing the power off with 9 home runs already, I think this is absolutely someone that we need to watch for MVP watch already. Now, moving on to our next guy, one of my favorite people to talk about on the podcast, Mike Trout, 9 home runs. The bat, don't look at the batting average. Don't look at, the RBIs and how many he has, because most of the time it's a solo shot or a 2-run home run, because, the Angels are still the Angels and not very good. But Mike Trout, it's so nice to see him playing every day and producing. I saw him make a diving catch a couple days ago. Not gonna lie, I did hold my breath a little bit. I'm like, oh, please get up and be fine. But he ended up making the catch, staying in the game. But yeah, honestly, it's good to see Mike Trout producing. And I'm going to just keep harping on this as all baseball fans and fans of the game. I think we all just want to see Mike Trout be healthy. Him and Jacob deGrom kind of in that same boat of, absolute generational talents, absolutely the best players at their position when they're healthy, in their prime, pound for pound. easily, hands down. There's like no debate. In my opinion, there is no debate. In their prime, I'm taking Mike Trout in his prime, and I'm taking Jacob deGrom. There's nobody that compares those two guys, like, at least that I've seen in my generation. And to see, again, Mike Trout being on the field and just playing, even if he plays 145, 150 games, I'd totally be happy with that. I think we could all call that season a success. And maybe this move to right field was the thing that, was kind of holding him back, because playing center field, takes a toll on the body. And, guys aren't getting any older, especially with Trout and his injury history. I think it was just a move that, needed to happen to keep him on the field, and to see him at top of the leaderboard this early in the season. I think it's a great sign of, hopefully a very productive season to come for him. Then our last guy breaking up this tie is Cal Raleigh, big dumper for the Seattle Mariners. And I think that we kind of underrate Cal Raleigh as, one of the better power hitters in the game, honestly. As a catcher, he's not gonna hit for a high average. He's probably gonna hit between 210 and 230. If that. I think last year, if I remember correctly, he hit like maybe 215, 220. But you're going to get easily 25 to 30 home runs from him. Amazing defense. He won the Platinum Glove last year. There's not really much you want more from a catcher. Sure, you could want a higher batting average, but when you're hitting the ball out of the ballpark and still producing RBIs, especially in Seattle, where historically it's not been a great place to hit for hitters, and him being a switch hitter too, having more power obviously from the left side, that being his strong side, but still having the versatility to, swing it from both sides and still be productive from both sides. I think this Mariners team needs, obviously an offensive boost, and Cal Raleigh being the catalyst in that lineup, I think is a great sign for them to keep it moving in the competitive AL West. But who knows what can happen with that team if, Jorge Polanco is hitting better. Julio is, Julio, he's going to have his hot and cold stretches, but is a great talent regardless. So if we can see guys get on for Cal Raleigh, and who knows, we all know he's a really clutch player, and you don't want to see him up in those big moments. But I think this is, just a sneak preview of what we should be expecting from Cal Raleigh, for the rest of his career. Just putting up big home run numbers and continue to be easily one of the better catchers in the game, if not the best catcher in the game. Now, moving back to the no city designated Athletics, they called up Nick Kurtz earlier this week, and this was a guy who already in the minors threw probably 5 games, had 7 home runs. Okay, maybe it wasn't 5 games, but he had an absurd amount of home runs in very little time, and this was someone that was playing first base, just like Tyler Soderstrom, and I think he basically forced the Athletics' hand into calling him up. And, we saw a couple games where we saw Brent Rooker in the outfield, which, as we all know, Brent Rooker isn't a great outfielder. He's the second best DH, if not the best DH in the league, for a reason, because he just absolutely mashes, and that's his only job. And when you see him playing in the outfield, that means that they got to open that DH spot for either Tyler Soderstrom or they're putting Nick Kurtz there. And, this Athletics team has some fun players. Like, you have Geloff, you have a guy like Jacob Wilson who, refuses to strike out and refuses to walk. I think I saw on Twitter, or X, he drew his first walk of the season yesterday and has like a .07 walk rate. Like, that's absurd. And when you forget, he's also hitting .330. So you kind of take the good with the bad. He's going to put the ball in play and not strike out or walk. But he's gonna get on base with just singles. He's not a big power hitter. Only 3 home runs so far this season. You can probably see him averaging between 10 to 15. But like again, this is him up the middle with Geloff, and you forget you guys have JJ Bleday, who solidified himself as a solid big leaguer. You have Lawrence Butler, who said he wants to be an all-star this year, and if he puts up numbers like he was putting up in the second half last year, can absolutely do it. You have Shea Langoliers, who made some strides as a better catcher last year, showed off the pop, hit 34 home runs last year, something like that. He's going to be absolutely solid for them for the future. And then you have, again, like Nick Kurtz in that lineup now. I think it's just going to elongate that if they, decide to play him at first, move Soderstrom to left field. You could have a revolving door with him and Rooker at DH. Like, there's so many possibilities for this lineup now. And the fact that you're just adding and adding and adding guys that are going to produce for them sooner rather than later, I think this is one of the more exciting teams in the MLB. But on the other side, they're pitching outside of Severino, who, is more so eating innings at, a low fours. Is supposed to be that quote unquote ace of the staff. The pitching still leaves a lot to be desired outside of Mason Miller, who, can we just talk about that guy for a quick second? He has thrown 9 innings, allowed 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 home run, 1 walk, and 18 strikeouts. 18 strikeouts. It's just absolutely lights out when this guy comes into the game. And it's just been crazy to watch from him coming into the Athletics organization as a starter, and then coming up, being absolutely electric through his first, 2-3 starts, going down with an injury. And, we kind of held our breath for a little bit, because this was a guy that was throwing like smooth and easy 101, 102. And I think this is absolutely someone that you need to lock up if you're the A's front office, because this is a guy that honestly, it terrifies me as someone just watching from TV. As soon as you see Mason Miller come into the game, it's over. It's absolutely over. I've watched a handful of his closing appearances, even in the All-Star game. Like, when he came in, he was just throwing absolute smoke, and it's just free and easy. It was the easiest 103, 104 that, we've seen. And I think if you put, even a couple of like capable bullpen arms or couple of capable starters for this team, they can absolutely compete in that AL West, and might not be for the top spot, but you can have them sneak in as a wild card, and then all you need is them to get in the playoffs and build that hype around them. And because these guys are so young, they're gonna get amped up and want to perform for this team that right now doesn't have a place to play, the no designation Athletics. I think this is a future that I will definitely be investing in the next 2-3 years, because I think this is going to be one of the most exciting teams in the MLB. Now, moving from one of the best closers in the MLB to now one of the, man, it's hard to say, but is he the worst closer right now? Is he the worst? I'm talking about my New York Yankees, Devin Williams. And, as we traded for him, I was absolutely ecstatic, because it was going to be the 8th inning of Luke Weaver, who was absolutely disgusting once he moved into the closer role. Could give you multiple innings, absolutely electric on the mound with his passion, his emotion. And now you're bringing in Devin Williams, who has just been lights out the last 3 years, has that devastating changeup, or as he calls it, the airbender. One of the craziest pitches in baseball still. It blows my mind how much he really torques that wrist and lets it absolutely like rip off the seams. It's crazy to watch in slow motion. But anyways, he has not been good at all for the Yankees. And it honestly, it pains me to watch him like appear in these games, because you just expect it to be shut down. Maybe one guy gets on off a weak single, off a changeup, or a ball gets through a hole somewhere. But man, it's been hard to watch. He's walking the world right now. He's not really striking anybody out on that changeup, and he's allowing a lot of. I know there was that one blown save with the Tampa Bay Rays where I think there wasn't a ball hit over 80 or 85 miles an hour, but still, like, that shouldn't be happening. For one of the best closers in the game, like you gotta figure it out at some point. Like, there's gotta be a switch that flips at some point, and you can't be constantly blowing games. Even with his first appearance against the Brewers for the first game of the season, like, it was just I would be lying if I said I wasn't panicking when he came in with the bases loaded. And, he did end up getting that strikeout of Yelich, but I was biting my nails. I was panicking. But the question for me is, how long do you just keep letting him ride in that closer role? Because like we saw last year, once they moved Clay Holmes out of that closer role, cardiac Clay, and moved Luke Weaver into that closer role, we saw a better version of Clay Holmes and a better version of Luke Weaver. So maybe could we see that switched with the Yankees here? I don't think that they will. I think Aaron Boone is going to stick to his guy in the ninth inning. This is something that Devin Williams was brought here to do, was to close games. But, his early season failures, or not failures, but, his success in April through his whole career hasn't been great. But, once the calendar switches to May and onwards, he turns into the best closer again in baseball. So should be interesting story to watch here. But me personally, this may be an overreaction as a Yankees fan, but I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. Give me Weaver in the ninth every single game, and I might be the happiest person on earth. I don't have to watch Devin Williams walk, hit by pitch, double in the gap, and the game's over, basically. But anyways, that may be an overreaction, but that's just my opinion and me talking as a delusional Yankees fan. But next up, we have one of the more fun pitching matchups that we've had in quite a while this year. We had Paul Skeens versus Yamamoto. And we all know Paul Skeens, in my opinion, best pitcher in baseball. I don't care what the stats say. It might be Chris Bassett or Tyler Mahle, or I don't believe in that. I think pound for pound, when you're talking about best pitcher, best stuff, best control, I think it easily goes to Paul Skeens. And then Yamamoto isn't far behind Skeens anyway. Yamamoto's putting up stats that, we kind of expected last year. But, first year coming over from Japan, adjusting to the new baseball, the time, just a whole bunch of, it's an adjustment period for him. He was also injured a little bit, but Skeens was absolutely electric. The first inning, he was out there before they even turn the cameras on for a commercial, which I find is absolutely hilarious. But I mean, hey, if you're facing the Dodgers, how could you not be amped up? And, it showed. He went 6 1/3, 5 hits, no walks, no runs, 9 punch outs, and some really uncomfortable swings. The one strikeout he had on Ohtani, Ohtani did not look balanced at all in those swings, especially on the strike 3 call. He was flailing at the pitch, and I mean, hey, Paul Skeens will do that to you. He's got so many offerings now, and like I talked about early before the season even started, him adding new pitches to an already gross arsenal, like, man, this guy is gonna be so much fun to watch, and I think he's gonna be like that poster boy for pitching. Might be a hot take, but he's gonna be that poster boy for pitching for years to come. And you're going to see guys trying to throw splinkers and all of these kind of pitches based off of Paul Skeens. And honestly, he seems like a really like in-tune guy with how his body works and how his body moves. And, trying to sequence his pitches properly. He seems like a really intuitive baseball player. And to be a really good pitcher, you kind of have to have that feel for the game. And I think that Paul Skeens absolutely has that feel, and it tells. Like, his success through the minor league season, even going back to his college days, how dominant he was there. He was a man playing with boys, basically. And for that to still translate to the MLB level is kind of crazy. And I see it continuing for, God willing, that, injuries don't happen to him, but even then, he's probably going to come back even stronger from whatever injuries. So I'm wishing him nothing but the best. And I just want to see him continue to pitch at this high level for as long as possible. But also a quick shout out to the Pirates bullpen. After Skeens, was taken out, they brought in Ryan Borucki, Dennis Santana, and then Bednar, who in games past, or even at the start of the season, was not looking like, the Bednar that we're used to. But in his last 3 appearances, after coming back from the minor league stint, he's looked good. 3 innings, 5 Ks, 1 walk. He's looking like the Bednar of old. And, I think if this guy continues to be consistent and look like the Bednar that we're all used to seeing with that, the high velo, fastball at the top of the zone, along with that splitter and curve, I think this is a possible trade piece for, a contender come the deadline. But, if the Pirates just want to say screw it and keep him, this is a good closer. It's not like you're having a slouch there at the back end of your bullpen. He's been an all-star for you guys. So I think if you could get Bednar right, and if this bullpen, because Dennis Santana has been really good for this pen quietly. So has Ryan Borucki, Caleb Ferguson, who was good too. There's a couple of Yankees guys in there. Dennis Santana and Caleb Ferguson weren't so good for the Yankees, but all of a sudden are good for the Pirates. Interesting. But yeah, no, those guys for the Pirates, I know the Pirates aren't great offensively outside of O'Neal Cruz, who is just running like a madman on the bases and hitting home runs a million miles an hour. This team has some pieces, and with a couple upgrades here and there, this becomes a team that you aren't just watching for a Paul Skeens start. And again, they're not going to be competitive, but they're going to be a lot better than what people are going to think they are. And they'll sneak a couple wins here and there, but again, this is going to be Pittsburgh Pirates baseball for a while. It's going to be headlined by Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, Jared Jones when he comes back. Absolutely Bubba Chandler once they call him up, whenever that is. But this is going to be, headlined by the pitching. And then O'Neal Cruz with his big self running around in center field, hitting the ball and throwing the ball as hard as he possibly can. But it could be an exciting team. They just need to really buy into making this team competitive and, spend some money on some good free agents and try to fill out this roster where, you have some visible holes. One last thing I want to touch up on is nothing a big headline, but Tristan McKenzie DFA'd by the Cleveland Guardians. This was once a top prospect for them. Showed some real promise just a couple years ago. Was a top 10 Cy Young vote. Showed some potential, but I honestly don't even know what happened. I think it was when he had gone down with an elbow injury and had decided not to get Tommy John, and ever since then, the last 3 years have kind of been just absolutely horrendous for him. Completely lost the feel for the strike zone and all of his pitches. Velocity was way, way down. And mind you, this is a guy that's probably about 110 pounds soaking wet. And his velo wasn't anything that blew you away. He was, I think, at his peak in 2021, 2022, he might have been throwing 93, 94, but had good control of that slider and the curveball. But I saw him last year? He was struggling to touch like 90, 91. So this is, it's a sad downfall for a guy that showed a lot of promise early in his career. And who knows who picks him up, or if he finally tries to go get that surgery to get him right. But I don't know what the future holds for Tristan McKenzie. I see people on Twitter saying, oh, Dodgers are going to pick him up, or this guy's a new Blue Jay. But I don't know. Those are two completely different ends of the spectrum, where you have the Dodgers and their pitching factory and seem to be, just a revival of careers over there. And then you have the Blue Jays, who are like we almost had that guy. And then they go get like an old veteran, like Justin Turner or something like that. So I don't know if we see Tristan McKenzie get picked up. I'll be interested to see if he gets picked up and, if he makes an impact coming back to, the major leagues, which I highly doubt, but it's a sad downfall for him. There wasn't much to his stuff. Didn't wow you. The slider was good, not great, but man, it's just tough. And when it's bad is when the Cleveland Guardians release you, and they're a pitching factory as well. So there must have been something absolutely wrong with Tristan McKenzie that they couldn't get right to make this decision. So it's sad to see, but wishing Tristan McKenzie the best in his future, wherever that is. But that's going to close out today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed what I talked about today. Let me know in the comment section below if anybody on the home run list, or even any of the stats, have surprised you so far through the early stages of the season. There's always going to be a couple names that really jump out and surprise us, like, hey, this guy's leading, or in the top 10 for this stat, just like known power hitter Tommy Edman with 8 home runs, and his career high, I'm pretty sure, is like 14, 15, and it's only been not even a quarter of the season yet, which is insane to think about. But let me guys know who you guys find interesting in those stats. But don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and rate 5 stars on Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and helps get the podcast out there, get it into that algorithm. But I think you guys are going to enjoy the next podcast. I have one of my close friends hopping on, and we're going to have some good baseball discussion. I think you guys are going to very much enjoy that. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.